Thank you very much for the kind invitation and giving me the opportunity to present our work here with a number of short slides. Perhaps we could jump right in and beginning with the first one after this. Yes. So just very quickly, who are we? As the voice of the European banking industry in Brussels, we are representing our national member associations for Luxembourg, such as ABBL, and we have roughly about 3,500 banks behind our structure, and that includes large and small, wholesale, retail, the full spectrum. And the EBF has a very proactive approach when it comes to the issue of digital transformation and the policy that is created in Brussels for that. And I bring you here, if you move to the next slide, a survey that was conducted by one of our knowledge partners, Reply, earlier this year, that shows you the relevance of cloud within the digital transformation process for banks. Just looking at the 10 and 20% of the respondents sharing that they have projects and programs already as cloud implementations, and this is a tendency that goes up, shows you the enormous potential that is behind cloud as a key enabling technology. And with that comes, on the next slide, the understanding also of challenges. And if you look at the highest bar here, regulatory compliance concerns, that gives you a feeling that there are still a couple of important questions that have to be addressed. We have heard from the AWS side already a tremendous energy and dedication that is put into this cooperation with banks, also around the regulatory field. But I want to dive in with you today specifically for the topic of cloud auditing into what do we face and where do we can help to make cloud adoption even more harmonized, even more easy for financial institutions, with particular attention to audits. And that means we have to understand here the legal requirements that the European Banking Authority in 2019 has issued, and there's a dedicated section around access information and audit rights. And without going into every detail now, just giving you a bit of a flavor what is addressed there. Of course, auditing has to be addressed under the written outsourcing agreement with the provider. There cannot be limits of an effective audit. Key aspects need to be determined, frequency being one of it. At the core of this cloud use and the cloud audit stands a risk-based approach of the financial institution. And you can use assurance tools under certain limits that the EBA here has already outlined. Notification ideas, skills are very important. So there's a solid foundation that gives us a little bit of guidance how to approach cloud audits. If we could move to the next slide, sorry, what I just said is indeed here. And the next slide after that outlines the key challenge that our members face: fragmentation. And that means, based on the European guidance rules, there are the national supervisory authorities and regulators stepping in, implementing these rules and creating, according to the national markets and interests, perhaps even additional rules. So that means suddenly you're in a situation where, as an implementing bank, you have to have particularly 27 different conversations with 27 different supervisors on how to implement and adopt your cloud solution. And to harness the advantage of cross-border cloud and to use this technology for optimum innovation, this fragmentation can be quite detrimental. And this is one of the projects, if we move to the next slide, that if you consider cloud here as the computing image, that we as the EBF have proactively picked up in 2018 already, and bring together the right people to talk about it and make harmonization possible, also from an industry side. And who is then we in this constellation? If we click one more, we see that there's, of course, the financial side as the customer. The next click will show us the provider. And now it's very important to understand with the third click, and I take Madame Legati just as an example, the regulatory and supervisory actors create the ecosystem, and they are closely involved with the financial institutions picking up cloud. So this is a three-side conversation. And with the next click, you will see that the EBF Cloud Banking Forum was designed by us as an exchange platform, as a forum to bring together all these three parties to work on key educational and technical features for cloud. And the next click will show you a short overview here of the involved participants. And of course, that is the EBF and the banks behind it, and ABBL and the cloud working group are tremendous assets in our consolidation and intelligence gathering here. These people work together with the cloud service providers in the forum, and you see the variety of players that we engage with, and the industry observers as well, and then incoming observers with representatives from the European Commission, the European Banking Authority, and the European Central Bank. Even specialized national supervisors with responsibilities at the European level are included. And moving to the next slide, that in the past already has translated into particularly helpful guidance documents. On the left, you see something educational on the use of cloud by FEs, but of course, we also pick up technical details, and one paper addresses testing of cloud exit strategies. Another one, the reporting obligations under the register that the EBA guidelines lay out, specifically from our side with guidance on cloud-specific issues. All these papers are available at the EBF's website, ebf.eu, and you will see it also in a variety of outreach activities, LinkedIn articles, podcasts, dedicated expert calls with supervisors, and so on. Moving to the next slide, the educational part, of course, provides the foundation, and then moving to the next slide, the technical guidance coming on top of that helps with best practice recommendations that really can mature your understanding if you are freshly interested in cloud, but of course also it helps established financial institutions and the providers in their common conversation how to adopt to legal requirements, how to implement them in the practical operations. And cloud audit, thank you for the next slide. Cloud audit here, of course, is a key to understand how the cloud service functions and to get the necessary assurance that you as a compliant financial institution need under the supervisory expectations and rules. And I just quickly outline here the main three sections and some of the building blocks we address therein. That means, of course, to kick off, we have to specify what cloud constellation are we looking at. Our paper addresses a direct outsourcing relationship with the provider, so no fourth party constellation, but rather a direct engagement. But we then pick up the three line of defense model that we have heard from the previous speaker already, having management controls and internal controls measures, the financial control, security and risk management, and then finally, in the third point, the internal audit, coming in, looking at cloud solutions, and also looking, with the help of our next building block, how cloud auditing is different conceptually and in the approach from traditional auditing. And to help with that a little bit more, we have, on the one hand, created an annex, a matrix for responsible, accountable, consulted and informed roles between the two players of the institution as customer and the provider. And with this guidance of who can take up what role, we also have complemented our paper with principles that any audit should start from. And that means integrity, collaboration, fair presentation, due professional care, confidentiality, independence, and of course also an insightful, proactive, future-focused angle, since audits is kind of a common learning experience, and you will see that in a moment, in particular with pooled audit. Then, of course, we have also, can we stay with the previous slide for a moment longer? Thank you. We also have an understanding that the regulatory framework for our work is evolving, and that means we have DORA as an upcoming regulatory initiative on our radar. It's still a work in progress, as we have also heard the Commission's presentation. And so this is highlighting to future actions, but nevertheless, it's important to also get the understanding of this regulatory big picture in which an institution conducts its audit, and DORA will affect the auditing of cloud to some extent as well. Quickly looking at section 2 and 3, here we get a little bit more into the technicalities of things. Section 2 looks at service assurance, where we look at the different tools and resources that are available. I will bring you a table in a moment to look at it more in detail, but it's important to understand that an audit does not only have to be effective in its tools, that is quite fundamental, and all financial institutions are solidly basing their activity on the regulatory expectations under the EBA guidelines. So we start from the previously mentioned catalog and understanding of the supervisor, but we also face an ecosystem where a smaller number of hyperscale providers are servicing an ever larger number of financial institutions picking up cloud. And that means a lot of questions are repeated in various cloud audit constellations. That means a lot of information is relevant for a larger number of people, not only in a one-on-one constellation. And here the question of efficiency comes in, and we look at the assurance tools within the legal remit of the EBA guidelines. Of course, we look at these assurance tools in terms of independence, what kind of advantages can they bring to the institution to pick them up, what kind of drawback are potentially connected to the instrument, and how that can fit together, and how that can also be leveraged during an audit process. And one of the instruments that has particular attention is the pooled audit, where we first of all look at this group of financial institutions coming together, cooperatively engaging with one single provider in a pool audit, and understanding what this collaboration means, how it can be meaningfully set up, and also that with pooled audit already out there in the market, gathering experience and conducting exercises, that it's still a learning experience. And we are moving along together with the technological uptake. We are moving along in our understanding to make the application of this tool and the pooled audit more effective. And again, we complement our guidance here with principles that are helpful to start from, how the organization can look like in such a pool. And in a moment, I show you also a process slide where you look at different steps from the preparation over the field work to the follow-up. Moving to the next slide, we can keep this short, and this is the fundamentally understanding that I already mentioned, a risk-based approach, the EBA guideline framework. This is determining the guidance on efficiency. This is determining our view of the assurance tools. And if we move to the next slide, you see here what number of tools are actually available, some of which are explicitly addressed by regulation already, both in terms of usability, but also potentially limits. But we complement this picture in a rather helpful overview way. And you can see here that from process documentation over automated reporting tools, different testing options, penetration testing being here one, and also third-party certifications, we move through the different options until we reach a pooled audit, and then finally a one-on-one audit option. And if you, I can only, for the details, point you into the direction of our upcoming paper. If you move to the next slide, you understand a little bit better how particularly a pooled audit can enable a group of financial institutions to reduce costs and save resources. In the first step, simply by bundling capacities and streamlining the process in a group, but also potentially with this group growing over time. Once we get more learning experience, you can also add a common language, a deeper understanding of each other's approach towards cloud in the fine details. You can look at the controls landscape more advanced, and you can even aim for a methodology that can help the cloud audit approach to be much faster and reducing any friction of potentially discussing at the foundation where we come from, what are the basics. So all of this can increase here. And lastly, you will be able to have a large-scale alignment of a growing number of banks using cloud when they engage with individual CSP, and they can scale up this efficiency also not in the individual exercise, but also for future audits to come, simply adding more and more to the pool of understanding. If we look at the next slide, that is a bit of a flavor of how we try also to use visuals to accompany our best practice guidance. And I singled out here the pooled audit process as something that could be of interest to you here today. First of all, you have to understand that the pool audit process has individual steps that can be individually driven, but it can also be joint driven. And some of these steps produce certain key products that are essential for the financial institutions auditors to work with and get the assurance about the cloud service in question that they want. And just going quickly from left to right, an audit trigger can be under the audit plan of the participating pool institution. An audit trigger leads towards the preparation phase, where you have to, as a group, as a pool, have to thoroughly think about the control scope and the service scope that you want to address. You have to codify this understanding in a solidly created audit program, which then allows you to move into an audit fieldwork that picks up design effectiveness testing, that picks up operating effectiveness testing, complementing the audit program where the practical fieldwork may identify the need for it, but also creating concrete work papers as a product of this fieldwork that allows the auditors to later codify their understanding and work with the evidences, which is then a very interesting joint and individual step, the audit reporting and the pooled audit report as a final outcome. This is, of course, a pooled report that is agreed among the group of banks regarding the audit observations. And it is also a pooled report that kicks off individual reporting actions afterwards. We will all understand that financial institutions picking up cloud at different pace with different risk appetite are here not always aligned on every single detail of how the cloud service is used and what in turn is relevant to look at in particular when it comes to audit and mitigation measures afterwards. So the pooled audit report kicks off the individual audit reports by the group members, and that can mean the CSP is able to work together with this individual bank on basis of this individual report. It can also mean that the CSP has an option to engage with the pooled group and their common report at a broader scale, looking, for example, at non-customer specific control remediations. Or it can even mean that the provider opts for a standardized audit remediation report himself, so that this can be contributed in return to the pool. And as follow-up actions and key products, you therefore face both possible standardized audit reports, but also the individual codifications. All of this sounds maybe rather technical for a quick presentation such as this. The paper has extensive guidance and extensive recommendations, and I encourage everybody who is interested to take a look. If we move to the next slide. Just to indicate, we are putting the final touch at our document. It will be ready either in December or early next year, depending a little bit around the Christmas break. But it will be then available at ebf.eu for download of the public, since we want to have it as a communication not only to the banks and our own members, but also to the CSPs involved and others, and of course the supervisory ecosystem. And we will be happy to engage with stakeholders around this document, and I very much appreciate the chance for me to present it here today. All in all, that brings me to my last slide, and that is simply the highlight that we have to work together across the sector line to avoid detrimental fragmentation, both in the supervisory ecosystem, but also in the regulatory setup. And we believe that with such a proactive common forum and the kind involvement of the EU observers on board, we have an excellent tool to create more harmonization and to support thereby the cloud uptake in the financial sector in Europe. Thank you very much.